Imagine this scenario. You're living in a country that is, celebrated as a global champion of renewable energy.
The poster child.
Exactly.
Right.
You've got wind turbines spinning on the horizon, solar panels glistening on every rooftop, and electric vehicles humming through the streets. It sounds like a utopia, right? A green dream.
It sounds like the finish line we are all racing toward.
But then, on a sunny Tuesday afternoon, you get a notification on your phone. It's from the government.
Okay.
And they aren't asking you to save power because there's a shortage. They're asking you to stop using electricity because there is too much of it.
Too much? That doesn't sound right.
They are begging you to unplug your solar panels because the grid is literally about to melt down.
Wow. It sounds like a paradox. But for listeners who follow global energy markets, you know this isn't some hypothetical. This is exactly what happened in the Netherlands recently.
The irony is it's so rich, isn't it? They face severe grid congestion because their renewable capacity, the solar and wind generation, it expanded way faster than the physical wires, the transmission infrastructure, could actually handle.
It got so bad that industrial giants were being put on waiting lists just to get a power connection. Imagine that.
It's the ultimate lesson in physics versus idealism. You can have all the green energy in the world, but if the pipes, the grid, were built for the old world of centralized coal plants,
The system just breaks. And that tension, that friction between these high ideals and the hard, messy reality of infrastructure is exactly where we are starting today.
Welcome back to the Simplified UPSC by PPP YouTube channel. I'm your host, and today we are doing something pretty special. We are taking a very deep dive into the Economic Survey 2025-26, specifically Chapter 10.
Which is titled Environment and Climate Change, Building a Resilient, Competitive, and Development-Driven India. And frankly, it is one of the most pragmatic, clear-eyed chapters I have read in years.
We are going to decode that pragmatism. This isn't just a summary. We're going to unravel the mysteries of climate finance, carbon markets, and why India is, well, flipping the script on how we even view development.
It's a big one.
It is. But before we dive in, a humble request. If you find value in our hard work, and we put a lot of work into these, please hit that subscribe button. It really does help us keep the lights on.
And unlike the Dutch grid, we promise not to overload you.
And for those of you who are capable, please consider joining our paid membership on YouTube. It's what supports the channel's ability to keep bringing you this super useful, research-heavy content.
We really couldn't do it without you.
And a massive shout out to all our existing Legend members. You guys are the real MVPs. Please like the video and share your valuable comments below. We actually read every single one of them.
We do. Also, quick resources announcement.
Oh, yes.
Free notes with practice PYQs based on this very depth dive are available right now on the Simplified UPSC by PPP Telegram channel.
And for our Legend YouTube members, don't forget to head over to the Discord channel. We have uploaded premium notes, extra PYQs, and Model Mains answers for the questions we are going to discuss today.
So all the tools you need are right there.
Okay, mission briefing. We are dissecting the survey's new theme, building a resilient, competitive, and development-driven India. We are going to move from the philosophy of adaptation, which is basically survival, to mitigation, which is the energy transition.
Then we'll tackle the absolute mess that is global climate finance.
It is a mess. And finally, we'll look at the new era of environmental regulation.
And what really stands out to me is the shift in tone. The survey just stops being apologetic. It lays out a roadmap for what you could call development realism.
I love that phrase, development realism. So let's start there. Part 1, the philosophy of development as adaptation. The survey makes a statement right at the start that feels counterintuitive. It says development is in itself a form of adaptation.
Right.
Unpack that. Because usually the narrative is that development causes climate change.
That is the traditional environmentalist narrative, yes. Growth kills the planet. But the survey flips that script completely. It argues that the single best way to protect a population from climate change is to make them wealthier, healthier, and more infrastructure rich.
How so?
I mean, think about it. If a cyclone hits, does it devastate a concrete house or a mud hut more?
The mud hut, obviously.
Exactly. If a new disease vector emerges because of rising temperatures, who survives? The population with a robust healthcare system and good nutrition, or the malnourished population?
So it's about building inherent resilience through prosperity.
Precisely. The survey actually references Bill Gates' reflections ahead of COP30 to back this up.
Oh, really? I didn't catch that. What is the Gates perspective here?
The argument is that climate policy essentially is health and agriculture policy. Gates points out that prioritizing human welfare things like better healthcare systems, higher agricultural productivity is more durable than just imposing constraints that might slow down economic growth.
So if you stifle growth in the name of climate action,
You might actually leave people more vulnerable to climate shocks because they lack the economic resources to bounce back. You make them poorer and therefore weaker against the very thing you're trying to fight.
so poverty is the biggest vulnerability. If you lift people out of poverty, you are automatically helping them adapt. It's not an either-or choice.
Exactly. Innovation is more durable than constraint. And this brings us full circle back to that Netherlands example we opened with.
Right.
The survey uses that story as a warning against what it calls unbalanced idealism. It's a lesson in sequencing.
Sequencing, meaning the order in which you do things really matters.
Crucially, the Netherlands experience showed that rapid deployment of renewables collided with a distribution network that was designed for the fossil fuel era. It was built for a few big power plants, not millions of little solar panels.
And the consequence?
The consequence was curtailment, where they literally have to turn off wind farms to save the grid, and economic stagnation for industries waiting for a power connection.
So the lesson for India is that we cannot just blindly chase renewable targets.
We can't. Our infrastructure, transmission, storage, grid management, it all must match the generation capacity. You have to build the roads before you can handle the traffic.
Right. We can't just put up solar panels and hope for the best. We need the wires to handle it. Now, looking at India's position in all this, the survey throws out some stark data to contextualize our responsibility. Our per capita emissions are at 2.9 tons.
Correct. And you have to compare that to the global average of about 6.7 tons.
That's less than half.
Less than half. Or you look at the U.S., which is roughly 14 tons, or China. The point the survey makes is that India has grown sustainably. We haven't been the ones clogging up the atmosphere for the last century.
And yet, because of our geography, we're highly vulnerable to the consequences.
Extremely vulnerable. And that's what leads to the survey's three-pronged strategy.
Okay, walk us through the pillars.
The first pillar is adaptation. Because we are vulnerable, protecting our people comes first. It's a non-negotiable.
Right.
The second is mitigation, but with a major caveat, it must ensure energy security. We aren't going to turn off the lights to save carbon if it hurts our industries and our path to becoming a developed nation.
And the third.
And the third, which is very, very interesting, is reliance on domestic resources.
Why the focus on domestic?
Because, simply put, international finance isn't showing up. But we'll get to the money part later. That's a whole saga on its own.
A saga I'm looking forward to. Okay, let's zoom in on that first pillar. Adaptation. Why put adaptation at the forefront? Usually, all the global talk, all the headlines from the COP summits are about mitigation cutting emissions, net zero, 1.5 degrees.
It comes down to timescales and benefits. Mitigation is a long-term, global cooperative game.
A very long-term game.
Very long-term. If India cuts emissions today, it helps the global climate decades from now. But adaptation. That provides immediate local benefits. It protects livelihoods right now. It protects infrastructure right now.
It's the difference between saving for your retirement fund and fixing the hole in your roof while it's raining.
That is a perfect analogy. You have to fix the roof first. Otherwise, you might not have a house to retire in.
Oh.
And you know, this connects directly to a question from the 2025 General Studies Paper 1.
Oh, a PY2 link. Let's hear it.
The question was, how are climate change and the sea level rise affecting the very existence of many island nations?
Oh, that's a heavy question and very relevant.
Highly relevant. And while the question asks about island nations, the principles apply directly to India. We have a massive coastline, over 7,500 kilometers. The survey highlights the National Coastal Mission specifically to address this vulnerability.
So we're facing the same threats.
We are vulnerable to the exact same sea level rise that threatens the Maldives or Tuvalu. So for India, adaptation isn't theoretical. It's existential for our coastal cities like Mumbai or Chennai or Kolkata.
But adaptation costs money. A lot of money. Building seawalls, changing crop patterns, reinforcing bridges, that's not cheap.
It is incredibly expensive. And this is where we hit the finance gap. The survey cites the 2025 Adaptation Gap Report. Developing countries need somewhere between $310 to $365 billion.
Billion with a B.
Billion with a B every single year just to adapt.
And how much are they actually getting from the global community?
About $26 billion.
Wow. That's That's a rounding error. That's barely, what, 8% of what's needed?
Exactly. It's a massive, massive shortfall. And that is why India is pivoting to what the survey calls self-funded resilience.
Self-funded resilience. So we're not waiting for the check to arrive in the mail.
Well, we can't afford to wait. The data shows that domestic spending on adaptation in India has actually risen from 3.7% of our GDP to 5.6% of GDP.
That's a significant chunk of the economy going just toward making sure we don't wash away or dry up. So let's get specific. Where is this money going? The survey mentions the NAPCC, the National Action Plan on Climate Change. What are some of the standout initiatives here?
Let's look at agriculture first, because that's the most vulnerable sector. It employs the most people.
Yeah.
You have initiatives like per drop more crop and soil health cards. These seem like basic farming tips, but they are absolutely critical adaptation measures. They make farms more resilient to erratic rainfall.
So if you use less water, a drought doesn't kill you as fast.
Precisely. It builds a buffer.
And for the coast, you mentioned the National Coastal Mission.
Yes, but there is a specific, really interesting initiative under it called MISHTI.
MISHTI?
It stands for Mangrove Initiative for Shoreline Habitats and Tangible Incomes.
MISHTI, that's a sweet name. What's the goal?
The target is to restore 540 square kilometers of mangroves across 9 states. Now, why mangroves? This links back to another PYQ from 2020 GS1, question 17.
Okay.
The question was, examine the status of forest resources of India and its resultant impact on climate change. Mangroves are a super resource in this context.
A super resource, how so?
Well, they're a double threat to climate change. First, they act as a fantastic carbon sink, absorbing about 4.5 million tons of carbon. That's the mitigation part.
And the adaptation part.
But crucially for adaptation, they physically stop the sea from eroding the land. They are a bioshield. They dissipate the energy of storm surges. Plus, they provide livelihoods for local fishing communities because fish and prawns breed in the mangrove roots.
So it hits all the buttons: mitigation, adaptation, and the economy.
Exactly. It's a high ROI intervention. It's smart development.
Now, one thing I really loved about this chapter is that it didn't just stay at the national level. It drilled down to the states. It really highlighted this idea of cooperative federalism.
Absolutely.
Because climate change doesn't look the same in the Himalayas as it does in the Kerala backwaters.
Yes, the subnational case studies are fascinating. It shows that the states are really becoming the laboratories for climate solutions in India.
Let's run through these because these are absolute gold for anyone writing mains answers. Concrete examples always score better than generic points. Let's start with Meghalaya.
So in Meghalaya, the problem is water security. Ironically, one of the wettest places on Earth faces water scarcity because the springs are drying up.
Why is that happening?
Deforestation, changing rainfall patterns, a combination of factors. So they launched a project called Megharise. It's a project focused on protecting catchment areas and building community-based water harvesting structures. It's a hyper-local, community-driven adaptation.
And then you have Kerala, a state that's seen some devastating floods.
Exactly. Kerala launched the Kira project, which is supported by the World Bank. This is all about climate-resilient farming. After the huge floods they had a few years ago, they are fundamentally re-engineering how they farm to deal with these extreme weather events.
The one that really caught my eye, though, was Gujarat, specifically the Ahmedabad Heat Action Plan. They have something called parametric insurance. Now, parametric sounds like something from a statistics nightmare. Can you explain that in plain English?
It's actually brilliant in its simplicity. Usually with insurance, say crop insurance, you have to prove you suffered a loss. You file a claim, an inspector drives out to your farm, assesses the damage, does a ton of paperwork. It can take months to get a payout.
A very bureaucratic process.
Very. Parametric insurance removes the human element, or at least most of it. It's based on a pre-agreed parameter, in this case, temperature.
So it's automatic.
Exactly. The contract says if the official weather station records a temperature of, say, 45 degrees Celsius for 3 days straight, the payout triggers automatically. No inspector, no claim form.
And this is for construction workers?
Yes, for outdoor workers like them. They get a payout usually around $750 to $1,250 directly to their bank account or mobile wallet.
So it allows them to make the choice to stop working during the dangerous heat hours without starving.
Precisely. It treats heat stress as an economic shock, not just a health issue. It's a financial adaptation tool.
That is genuinely smart. It moves from being reactive to being proactive. And then there was Uttarakhand in the Himalayas.
Yes, Mandakini ki Awaz.
The voice of Mandakini.
It's a community radio station. In the mountains, communication is life. They use radio for disaster preparedness and early warnings about things like flash floods.
And this connects to another PYQ, doesn't it?
It does. 2020 GS1 question 6, about the melting of Himalayan glaciers and the impact on water resources. When those glaciers melt and cause glacial lake outburst floods, that community radio station is the difference between life and death for the downstream villages.
It's amazing how the technology varies. You have high-tech algorithmic insurance in Ahmedabad and good old-fashioned radio in the Himalayas. But both are adaptation.
That's the essence of the development as adaptation philosophy. Use whatever tools work to protect the people. There's no single magic bullet.
All right, let's shift gears. That was a deep dive on adaptation. Let's move to part 3, mitigation. This is where we talk about the energy transition. And the survey introduces a concept it calls the energy trilemma.
The trilemma is the core balancing act every country has to perform. Imagine a triangle. The 3 corners are security, affordability, and sustainability.
And the rule of thumb is you can usually only pick 2 out of 3, right?
That's the historic struggle, yes. If you want it cheap and secure, you burn coal, but that's not sustainable. If you want it sustainable like solar, it might not be secure because the sun sets, or it might not be affordable without heavy subsidies.
So where does the survey say India's priority lies?
The survey is very firm on this. India must prioritize security and affordability to ensure our economic growth, while we simultaneously work on sustainability. This leads to the concept of dispatchable power.
Dispatchable power. That means power we can control, turn on and off like a tap.
Yes, exactly. The sun shines when it wants to, the wind blows when it wants to. That is intermittent or non-dispatchable. Dispatchable power like thermal from coal or nuclear is there when we want it, when the grid needs it.
So the argument is that we need this base load power to keep the lights on for industry.
Yes. The survey argues that while we aggressively scale up renewables, we cannot compromise our industrialization. We need coal and nuclear to provide the stable 247 baseload that keeps the factories running and homes lit.
So no shutting down coal plants just yet, but we are pushing hard on renewables. The survey mentions green hydrogen and nuclear as key future pillars alongside solar and wind.
Absolutely. And in fact, looking at solar, there was a question in 2025, GS1 question 6. Explain briefly the ecological and economic benefits of solar energy generation in India with suitable examples.
Okay, so how does the survey help us answer that?
Well, the survey provides all the data on our massive capacity expansion, which covers the economic benefit, creating an entire new industry, reducing our import bills for fossil fuel.
And the ecological benefit is obvious.
Right, displacing carbon emissions. But the survey adds a crucial nuance, which is the idea of self-reliance through schemes like PLI for solar manufacturing. We are trying to build the manufacturing capacity for solar panels inside India, not just importing them from China.
So that multiplies the economic benefit. We're not just users, we're creators.
We become part of the global supply chain. It's a strategic move.
But here is where it gets complicated. Carbon markets. The survey talks a lot about the CCTS, the carbon credit trading scheme. This feels like the new frontier of regulation. How does it even work?
It is, in essence, the financialization of pollution. The CCTS is India's own domestic carbon market. It has a dual mechanism.
Okay, break it down for us.
First, there is mandatory compliance. This is for the big emitters, the usual suspects: cement, iron and steel, aluminum. They are given emission intensity targets.
So a steel plant has a cap on how much carbon they can emit per ton of steel they produce.
Correct. An intensity target, not an absolute cap. If they are very efficient and emit less than that target, they earn carbon credit certificates, or CCCs. These are assets. They're valuable.
And if they're inefficient?
If another plant is inefficient and emits more than the target, they have a deficit. They have to go into the market and buy those certificates from the efficient plant to meet their compliance.
So it puts a literal price on pollution.
Yes. It creates a direct financial incentive. It makes being green profitable and being dirty expensive.
And what's the second mechanism?
The second part is a voluntary offset mechanism. This allows other sectors, maybe outside the mandatory group, to earn credits by doing green things, like a massive afforestation project. And these credits can then be sold on the voluntary market.
Now, why are we doing this now? Is it just to be good global citizens?
Not entirely. There is a very strong defensive strategy here. It's all about something called CBAM.
The Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism.
Yeah.
The European Union's carbon tax.
Exactly. The EU is introducing a tax on goods entering Europe based on how much carbon was emitted to produce them. If an Indian steel company exports to Europe, The EU will tax them.
So how does our market help?
If India doesn't have its own carbon pricing, our exporters will just end up paying that tax to Brussels. By having our own domestic market, we essentially keep that value within the Indian economy. We can say to Europe, our company's already paid for their carbon emissions here, so we don't owe you any tax.
Ah, so it's a shield. It prevents not just carbon leakage, but also tax leakage. That's very smart.
It is strategic geoeconomics playing out in real time.
Now, mitigation isn't just about big factories. It's also about us, the people. The survey talks a lot about mission life, lifestyle for environment.
This is a favorite topic of the survey, and it's a very important one. It distinguishes between supply-side measures like building a new wind farm and demand-side management, which is all about changing how people behave.
Can you give us some concrete examples of demand-side management?
The classic one, the biggest success story, is the UJLA scheme for LED bulbs.
Right.
That was a massive behavioral shift. Everyone switched because it just made pure economic sense. The survey also mentions the EcoMark scheme, which is about labeling household products so that you, the consumer, can choose the eco-friendly options.
This actually links to a prelims question from 2025. Question 34 was a statement-based question about the Paris Agreement and the concept of sustainable lifestyles.
Yes, and Mission Life is India's direct flagship answer to that specific aspect of the Paris Agreement. The agreement isn't just about what governments do, it's about mobilizing civil society. Mission Life attempts to institutionalize that mobilization.
Okay, we've covered adaptation and mitigation in detail. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the money, part 4, climate finance.
Or as I like to call it, the great global disappointment.
The survey uses a very specific phrase. Plenty of capital, limited risk appetite. What does that mean in simple terms?
It means the world is not broke, not by a long shot. The survey cites that global financial assets under management are around $147 trillion.
An unbelievable amount of money.
An ocean of money sloshing around in the financial centers of New York, London, Tokyo. But the flows of this money to developing nations for climate action are a tiny, tiny trickle. Only about 15% of private climate finance goes to the global south.
Why? Why is that? Is our money not good enough?
It's all about risk perception. Capital flows to where it feels safest, to lower-risk developed nations. Investors look at developing nations and they see currency volatility, they see political risks, and most importantly, they see lower credit ratings. So they demand a risk premium.
Which means we have to pay higher interest rates to borrow the same money to build a solar plant than a country in Europe would.
Exactly. The project becomes more expensive for us and therefore less viable purely because of where we are located on the map.
That seems fundamentally unfair.
It is, and the survey makes a scathing critique here. It argues that global investors do not internalize the social benefit of investing in the global south. They look at the financial balance sheet, not the global climate balance sheet.
And the numbers are just staggering. What's the need?
We need something like $5 to $6 trillion by 2030 for our climate goals.
Trillion. And what about the famous promise, the Copenhagen promise? The $100 billion per year that developed nations promised to give developing nations.
Yes, the one that was supposed to be delivered by 2020.
That's the one.
That's a story in itself. The OECD, which is a club of rich countries, claims it has been met. They say they provided about $115 billion. But then an organization like Oxfam did a deep analysis and said, hold on, most of that is just loans at market rates. It's not aid.
So it's not a grant.
Right. The actual grant-based useful provision is much, much lower. Oxfam estimated it at between $28 to $35 billion.
That is a huge discrepancy. It's like promising to give your friend money for dinner, but then you just loan it to them with interest and still call it a gift.
That is a very fair characterization of the developing world's frustration on this issue.
So India is once again looking inward, back to that idea of self-funded resilience. What are the domestic financial tools we are creating and using?
Sovereign green bonds are the big one. This is the government issuing bonds specifically to fund public sector green infrastructure projects. It creates a benchmark for the whole market.
And what else?
Then there is the RBI's green deposit framework. This is really important because it prevents greenwashing. It sets out rules to ensure that if a bank takes your money for a green deposit, it actually has to lend that money to a verified green project.
It adds accountability.
Accountability and credibility. And then you have the IFSCA in Gift City.
The International Financial Services Centers Authority.
They're promoting sustainability-linked lending and bringing in international capital on our terms.
You know, this whole discussion on finance reminds me of a question from way back 2013, GS3, question 2. It was about the FRBM Act, the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act.
That's an insightful connection. Tell me more.
Well, the FRBM Act was all about bringing in fiscal discipline, not spending more than you earn as a government.
Right, managing the deficit.
And today, it feels like we are seeing a new layer being added to that, climate responsibility in budgeting. Green bonds are essentially a way of integrating climate goals directly into our national fiscal architecture.
So we are redefining what responsible budgeting even looks like in the 21st century.
It's not just about balancing the books anymore. It's about balancing the carbon ledger, too.
Precisely. That's a great way to put it.
Okay, moving on to our final big section, Part 5, Regulation. This can sound dry, but the survey implies a major philosophical shift is happening here, too.
It really is. It's a shift from what you'd call command and control to streamlining for growth.
What was the old command and control way?
The old way was what economists call Pigouvian taxes and rigid standards. Do this or else you pay a fine. It was heavy on inspection, heavy on paperwork, and often led to an adversarial relationship between industry and regulators.
The Inspector Raj?
To an extent, yes. The new philosophy is risk-based, outcome-oriented, and it uses market-based instruments.
Give us the headline reforms that exemplify this shift.
The star of the show is Parivesh 3.0.
Sounds like a movie sequel. What is it?
It might as well be. It's the single window hub for all environmental clearances. It uses AI to process applications, it integrates with state land banks, and it offers 247 support. The whole idea is transparency and speed.
So if you want to build a factory, you shouldn't have to run to 10 different government offices for environmental clearance.
You go to one digital portal, Parivesh.
And then there is the Green Credit Program, which we touched on with carbon markets.
Yes, the GCP is fascinating because it incentivizes voluntary action. This is about going beyond compliance. If you, as a company or an individual, plant trees or conserve water beyond what is legally required of you, you get these green credits.
And these credits can be traded.
Exactly, you can trade them. It turns positive environmentalism into a market asset.
I also noticed the rationalization of Greenbelt norms in the survey. This seems like it could be controversial.
It is on the surface, but it's a move towards logic over blanket rules. Previously, there was a flat requirement. Most industrial estates needed a 33% green cover. It didn't matter what kind of industry it was.
A non-polluting software park needed the same green belt as a chemical factory.
Essentially, yes. Now, it's based on pollution potential. If you are a clean, white category industry, you need less green belt coverage. If you are a dirty red category one, you need more.
That just sounds like common sense. It reduces the compliance burden where it's not really needed without compromising the environment.
Exactly. And this brings up the role of the National Green Tribunal, the NGT. There is a question in 2025 GS2, question 15. What are environmental pressure groups? Discuss their role in raising awareness.
And the NGT is often where these pressure groups go to fight legal battles.
Yes. The NGT acts as a crucial check and balance in our environmental governance. But the survey's underlying suggestion is that with better, more transparent regulations like Parivesh and the Ecomark scheme, we might actually reduce the need for constant litigation.
How so?
If the data is transparent and the rules are logical and risk-based, there's less friction and fewer grounds for dispute between development projects and environmental concerns.
So fewer court cases and more actual on-the-ground compliance.
That is the ultimate hope.
We have covered a lot of ground. Philosophies, adaptation, mitigation, finance, regulation. Let's try and bring it all together in the conclusion. Part 6. What is the big overarching message here?
The synthesis, I think, is that climate action is no longer an add-on for India. It's not a side dish you have with your main meal. It is the main course of our development strategy.
And the flavor of that main course is pragmatism.
Yes, absolutely. We are not blindly following Western models or prescriptions. We are protecting our dispatchable power because we need to grow. The survey connects this to another chapter's theme, Chapter 16's idea of strategic indispensability.
Strategic indispensability. Meaning we want to become so important to the world that they can't afford to ignore us or dictate terms to us.
Exactly. By building world-class capabilities in solar manufacturing, in green hydrogen, in battery storage, India isn't just adapting to survive the climate crisis. We are building the industries of the future. We want to be an indispensable part of the global green value chain, not just a consumer of it.
So the final thought is development realism. We will grow, we will industrialize, And we will do it greener than the West did, but we will do it on our own terms.
That is the core message of this chapter. It is confident, it is realistic, and it is uniquely Indian.
What a journey through Chapter 10. We've unpacked the irony of the Dutch grid, the finance gap that's holding back the entire global South, and the incredible innovative solutions popping up in Indian states.
It really highlights that for UPSC aspirants, you cannot just study environment as a static subject anymore. You have to study it as a dynamic interplay of economics, geography, technology, and international relations.
Absolutely. Now, before we sign off, just a quick reminder. We hope this full, comprehensive analysis helps your preparation. To support us in keeping this channel running and keeping our own lights on, please do consider joining our paid membership.
And again, a massive, massive shout out to our Legend members. You are the ones who make this possible. Please like the video and leave a comment with your single biggest takeaway from today's deep dive.
And don't forget, the free notes and practice PYQs are waiting for you on our Telegram channel. The link is in the description.
And for our Legend members, head over to Discord for the premium notes and the model mains answers for all the questions we flagged today.
I want to leave you, our listener, with one final provocative thought. We talked a lot about how the global financial system is, well, refusing to fund the green transition in the global South. We talked about the risk premiums and the inherent bias.
It's a broken system. No two ways about it.
So here is the question. If that global system stays broken, will India's model of self-funded resilience, this idea of using our own domestic savings and sovereign bonds to save ourselves, will that become the new blueprint for the entire developing world? Are we right now writing the manual that countries in Africa and South America and Southeast Asia will be reading next decade?
That is a fascinating possibility. If the world won't save us, we save ourselves, and then we show others how to do it. A new form of leadership.
Think about it. Thanks for listening to Simplified UPSC by PPP. We'll see you in the next deep dive.
Goodbye, and happy learning.